It is thought that the Templars started moving their treasures from France to Scotland, and eventually from Scotland to Nova Scotia. And some believe that they may have known about America before its actual discovery, where they built a treasure pit to store their wealth and the treasures. And these treasures could include artifacts from the temple, or even the supposed Holy Grail. The next group that may have some connection to the Templars and may continue their story are the Freemasons. They're thought to have formed from the remnants of the Templars, and artifacts recovered from the area seem to have Masonic significance. The stone triangle found in 1936, a giant cross formed in stone, a handwork heart-shaped stone, also the cipher stone that John Smith kept in his fireplace, which disappeared in 1919. Fortunately, though, the text of the cipher had been preserved before the original disappeared. And in 1967, after overturning a giant boulder, they found a G inside of a rectangle inscribed on the rock, which is a Masonic symbol. Sir Francis Bacon, who lived from 1561 to 1626, was a great philosopher and scientist, and he had an interest in ciphers, which may link him to the cipher stone. In 1911, a follower of Bacon's codes and ciphers, Dr. Orville Ward Owen, followed instructions from one of Bacon's ciphers and found an underground chamber beneath the River Wye in West Britain. And this chamber was empty, but they found more ciphers carved in the walls. He has a link to Canada because in 1610 King James granted Bacon land in Newfoundland, Canada. It is believed that Bacon may have wanted these chambers to preserve his manuscripts. He was aware of a method of preserving manuscripts in mercury baths, and ancient flasks of mercury have been found on the island. And in 1897, the father of Mel Chappell, an owner of Oak Island, found on a drill bit a small piece of parchment with writing on it. The drill hit the material at about 150 feet down. Unfortunately, the parchment is only the size of a dime, and writing can be seen on it, but no legible letters can be seen. And if the parchment gives any clues or enlightenment as to what's in the treasure pit, it surely is corroded away now with the water in the pit, since the drill bored through anything that might have been protecting it. Bacon also has ties to strange inscriptions in England that may reference treasure that has links to the Knights Templar. Through the years, a large part of the excavations have been conducted by Freemasons from the area. One such Mason was A.O. Crichton. He was a member of the Oak Island Treasure Association, who helped remove the cipher stone in 1865. Also, Frederick Blair, who formed the association, also was a member in good standing of the Masons. The Masons seem to have a great interest in the site, and it's not surprising considering some of the Masonic symbols and imagery that have been found in the area. Some of the shakier theories as to the persons or groups responsible for the treasure pit on Oak Island have included Marie Antoinette's lady-in-waiting, and therefore the French, who some speculated hid France's crown jewels after the overthrow of King Louis and his wife. This was mainly based on the fact that her lady-in-waiting had moved to Nova Scotia. But by 1979, most of the scholarship had pretty much proven that the jewels had never left France. Another theory of who may build the pit was the British during the Revolutionary War, theoretically building it to hide monies to pay the troops. No records of actually ever losing any large amounts of money were ever found, or even a record or note alleging that they would have built the pit, even if they had recovered the money later. Also, it seems that Of course, doing this at the time of the Revolutionary War, that the pit seems to would have been built too late, that the pit seems to have already been there earlier than the 1776 time frame that the Revolutionary War would have happened, thereby making it less likely that it was done by the British. Even the Vikings, along with the ancient Egyptians, Mayans, Incans, and Aztecs, have all been considered builders of the pit. The Vikings seem very unlikely to have built the pit, although they may have been around the area in the ancient past. They probably would not have had any real treasure worth the effort of building the pit for. The ancient Egyptians may have had treasure, but there's no real evidence of their culture or of their diggings in the area. Now the Mayans, Incans, and the Aztecs, they had treasure, and in the end, some or all of the possible treasure in the pit may be from them. But again, there is no real evidence or clues that they may have actually sailed all the way up to Canada to hide treasure that they could have easily hid in South America. Of course, skeptics of any treasure on Oak Island believe that the pit is a natural formation, basically a sinkhole that debris had fallen into, and that those who were digging exaggerated, lied, or distorted what they were seeing and finding for the past 200 years. Personally, I believe that the many artifacts found from the past to present on the island prove a lot of activity on the island at the time the pit would have been built, somewhere in the 16 to early 1700s. The island was deserted until after the discovery of the treasure pit. So why were some groups of people on the island, and what were they doing? More than likely they were building the money pit. And in the end, the most likely builders of the pit lie somewhere between the pirates who were in the area at the time, or secret societies like the Knights Templar and Freemasons, who had means and treasure to hide. But after the first attempt failed to uncover treasure in the early 1800s, the Two-Row Company, in 1849, re-excavated the shaft back down to the 86-foot level. And of course the flooding returned, and they continued drilling to the bottom with an auger that at 98 feet hit wood and then metal pieces, giving the impression of a treasure cavity, but they were unable to overcome the flooding to retrieve the treasure. The next excavation attempt was made in 1861 by the Oak Island Association. When they excavated the bottom of the shaft, it fell into a natural cavern or a booby trap. They also had the first death in the hunt for the treasure associated to them, when a boiler from the pumping engine burst. And by 1864, the association had run out of money. And further excavations were done in 1866 and 1893, 1909, 1931, 1935, 1936, and 1959, but none were successful. And in 1887, the second death in the search for the treasure occurred when a worker fell to his death. And the promise of treasure even brought a future president of the United States into the hunt. In 1909, when FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, joined the old salvage group in digging in 1909, and he even kept up with news and developments most of his life. The 1960s saw the greatest tragedy strike Oak Island when Robert Restall and his wife leased treasure rights from Mel Chappell in 1959. The couple had retired from being circus daredevils to hunt for the treasure on the island. They had no major backing or expensive equipment, and for 6 years him and his family toiled on the island and worked the pit with no electricity, radios, or major comforts, and they even had to draw water from a pond nearby. And on August 17, 1965, on his way down the shaft, Robert Restall became dizzy and fell into the water, and his older son went in after him. And also, 2 other workers helping them also went after them. And in all, 4 people died in the pit, and autopsies would reveal death by drowning, but not the major cause of them. What caused